The House of Representatives choose a speaker and other officers to conduct the business of legislation, and they have the sole power of impeachment. The Senate is composed of 2 senators from each state serving a term of 6 years. The Constitution originally required that the senators be chosen by their respective state legislatures. The 17th Amendment, however, required that they now be elected by a popular vote of the people. Senators must be at least 30 years old, be a citizen of the United States for at least 9 years, and be an inhabitant of the state in which he or she is elected. The Vice President of the United States is the President of the Senate, but has no vote except when it is necessary to break a tie. The Senate chooses its officers and also a President pro tempore when the Vice President is absent. The Senate has the sole power to try all impeachments. When the President of the United States is tried, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court would preside. A 2/3 majority is needed for impeachment. Article 1 also deals with how states elect their senators and representatives, when they shall meet, and how they conduct their business. They are given compensation for their services, for they are not allowed to hold employment outside of Congress. The House of Representatives is responsible for all bills for revenue, but the Senate can propose amendments to these and other bills. Every bill that is approved by Congress must be presented to the President of the United States before it becomes law. The President can sign the bill into law, or he can veto the bill and send it back to Congress. The bill can then only become law by a 2/3 majority of both houses of Congress. Congress has the power to lay and collect taxes, to pay the debts, and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. They have the power to borrow money on credit of the United States, to regulate commerce, to coin money, to establish post offices, to declare war, to raise and support an army and a navy, and to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers and all other powers vested by this Constitution in the government of the United States or in any department or officer thereof. Article 1 concludes with one of the Constitution's most important clauses. The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion the public safety may require it. Simply stated, all persons arrested or imprisoned for a crime have a right to be brought before a court. This is one of the most important safeguards to personal liberty in the United States. Article 1 grants Congress other powers, but it also makes clear what they are forbidden to do. Article 2 of the Constitution deals with the President of the United States. The executive power shall be vested in a President of the United States of America. He shall hold his office during the term of 4 years, and together with the Vice President chosen for the same term. As was stated earlier, both the President and Vice President are chosen through a system known as the Electoral College. The President must be a natural-born citizen of the United States, at least 35 years old, and be a resident within the United States for at least 14 years. The President is compensated for his services to the United States. Before he can take office, he must take the following oath or affirmation. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. It is suggested in Article 2 that a president who is unable to discharge his powers and duties may be removed from office. The 25th Amendment of the Constitution clarifies this procedure. The President is the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces and has the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States. The President, with consent of the Senate, can make treaties, appoint ambassadors, and appoint judges to the Supreme Court. The Constitution requires that the President give to Congress from time to time a report on the state of the Union. The final clause of Article 2 clearly states that the President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. This clause tells us that no one, not even the President of the United States, is above the law. Article 3 deals with the Supreme Court. The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. Supreme Court justices hold their positions for life and are compensated for their services. Their decisions concerning the constitutionality of laws are final. Article 3 also states that trial of all crimes, except in cases of impeachment, are to be by jury and held in the state where the crimes have been committed. Article 4 declares that all public records from one state must be made available to all of the states, that the citizens of each state are entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens in all of the states, and that a criminal can be extradited from one state to another to face trial. The final clause in Article 4 states that the United States will guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government and will protect each of them against invasion and domestic violence. Article 5 states that Congress, with 2/3 of both houses, can propose amendments to the Constitution. 3/4 of the states are needed for final ratification. Article 6 declares that all debts and engagements entered into before the adoption of the Constitution are still valid, that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and that all senators, representatives, members of state legislatures, and all executive and judicial officers are to be bound by oath or affirmation to support the Constitution of the United States. Article 7 declares that ratification in 9 of the original 13 states are needed for ratification of the Constitution. The First Amendment states that the government cannot interfere with a person's right to freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, and the right to petition their leaders. The Second Amendment guarantees a citizen's right to bear arms. The Third Amendment forbids the government from quartering soldiers in private homes. The Fourth Amendment offers citizens freedom from unwarranted search and seizure of their papers and property. The Fifth Amendment guarantees against being tried twice for the same crime, self-incrimination, and the loss of liberty or property without due process of law. The Sixth Amendment gives people who are accused of crimes the right to a speedy and public trial by a jury of their peers, to know their accusers, and have a lawyer defend them. The Seventh Amendment gives people involved in lawsuits over money or property the right to a trial by jury. The Eighth Amendment provides protection against excessive bail and cruel and unusual punishment. The Ninth Amendment states that the fact that some rights are not specifically mentioned in the Constitution does not mean that the people do not have them. The 10th Amendment states that any powers not given to the government by the Constitution belong to the states and the people. These 10 amendments make up the Bill of Rights and are at the center of American freedom and liberty. They went into effect in December of 1791. In the 200 years that followed, only 17 more amendments were added to the Constitution to reflect the ever-changing times. The 11th Amendment was adopted in 1798 and was designed to keep suits between states and their citizens out of federal courts. The 12th Amendment, adopted in 1804, clarified the electoral procedure for election of president and redefined the role of vice president in relation to the presidency. Following the Civil War, 3 Reconstruction Amendments were added to the Constitution. The 13th Amendment, adopted in 1865, abolished slavery and involuntary servitude. The 14th Amendment, adopted in 1868, provided civil rights to all former slaves. The 15th Amendment, adopted in 1870, declared that the right to vote was not to be denied on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. After the turn of the century, in a period of growth known as the Progressive Era, 4 more amendments were added to the Constitution. The 16th Amendment, adopted in 1913, authorized a federal income tax for revenue to the ever-expanding federal government. The 17th Amendment, also adopted in 1913, made the direct, popular election of senators the law of the land. The 18th Amendment, adopted in 1919, ushered in an era of prohibition of alcohol consumption and distribution in the United States. The 19th Amendment, adopted in 1920, finally gave women the right to vote. The 20th Amendment, adopted in 1933, shortened the period between the election of the president and his inauguration. The date was changed from March 4th to January 20th. The 21st Amendment, also adopted in 1933, repealed the 18th Amendment, allowing, once again, for the sale and consumption of alcohol. The 22nd Amendment, adopted in 1951, limited the president to 2 terms in office, not exceeding a total of 10 years. The 23rd Amendment, adopted in 1961, gave residents of the District of Columbia the right to vote for president and vice president. The 24th Amendment, ratified in 1964, abolished the use of a poll tax as a prerequisite for voting in federal elections. The 25th Amendment, adopted in 1967, provides for situations of presidential disability and ensures that any vacancy in the office of vice president is filled. The 26th Amendment, adopted in 1971, lowered the legal voting age from 21 to 18. The 27th Amendment to the Constitution, adopted in 1992, was first proposed by James Madison in 1789. It prohibits midterm changes in the salaries of members of Congress. In the 200-year history of the United States, the Constitution has served its people well. It is a living document willing to change with the times, but always assuring the people basic civil liberties and necessary freedoms. In modern times, many nations have turned to democracy by following the examples laid down by the founding fathers of the United States and the framers of the Constitution. The Constitution of the United States will continue to live on as long as we, the people, allow freedom to forever reign.